Dolly says that Dolly isn't Rock Hall of Fame material. A Twitch feature gets used to promote people streaming the hub. Buckley calls himself an idiot, and people are yelling at Girl Scouts. Totally normal thing to do. All these exclusives and more at patreon.com/doseofbuckley. The lawsuit is the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme. Find some rich person you can sue for some perceived wrongdoing. Find one of those scumbag lawyers with a late-night ad that says something like, "We don't get paid unless you get paid." Come up with some really stupid dollar amount, and then hope the rich person can't be bothered to fight back, and that they'll just settle for some lesser amount that's still more money than you'd ever make if you actually put effort into something other than trying to scam someone else out of their money. And this has become very prevalent in the music industry, with nobodies trying to capitalize on the success of others. After the Blurred Lines copyright case, which, in 2016, I told you would open the floodgates for more lawsuits, guess what happened? The floodgates opened. I swear, if I do this for 33 years, I could also have as many correct predictions as The Simpsons. But anyway, in 2018, judges ruled that Blurred Lines was ripping off Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up, despite the fact that the two songs really aren't the same, but Blurred Lines uses a similar groove and took inspiration from the works of Marvin Gaye. So a judge was like, well, good enough for me. You guys got to give up $5 million to Marvin Gaye's kids. And I just picture somewhere in the world, musicians licking their lips and rubbing their hands together like a starving cartoon character seeing another character turn into a steak, as they all try and figure out what songs they've released that kinda sound like someone else's music. Because none of the artists that I'm going to talk about today would make $5 million in their career if they just stuck to making music. First, there was the Katy Perry Dark Horse lawsuit. A Christian rapper by the name of Flame, real name Marcus Gray, claimed that his song, Joyful Noise, was plagiarized by old Cupcake Tits. In 2019, a year after the Blurred Lines case wrapped, a judge ordered Katy Perry and the label to pay about $2.8 million in damages. For this. Yeah, that's worth $2.8 million. A judge who didn't have their head up their ass later overturned that verdict in 2020. And just last month, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals also sided with Katy Perry, saying that allowing a copyright over this material would essentially amount to allowing an improper monopoly over 2-note pitch sequences or even the minor scale itself, especially in light of the limited number of expressive choices available when it comes to an 8-note repeated musical figure. So, unless somehow the US Supreme Court wanted to hear this case, it looks like Flame has finally been doused. Then we have the current ongoing case of Dua Lipa versus a group called Article Sound System. They're suing Dua Lipa over her song Levitating, which they claim she clearly heard and then ripped off their song Live Your Life. Here's clips of those two songs back to back.
All day, all night, party to sunrise now. Don't stop till you have lived your life, oh, lived your life for real. I got you, moonlight, you're my starlight. I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating.
Article Sound System has a grand total of 86,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Most of that almost definitely due to the curiosity generated by this lawsuit against the far more popular Dua Lipa. And the song they're claiming she ripped off isn't even on there. In fact, I can't find a copy on YouTube either. At least, not an original. Every upload is only a month or two old, coinciding with when this lawsuit happened. But you know what is likely that Dua Lipa or her producers had heard, and in fact a song that Article Sound System has also absolutely heard? The song Rosa Parks by a little indie group that you might have heard of. Outkast, hilariously, isn't suing either of these groups. But Dua Lipa could, just out of principle, end this lawsuit tomorrow by adding Big Boy and Andre 3000 to the writing credits of Levitating and go, yep, that's where we got the inspiration from a song that's like 20 years old. We've never heard of this other group because no one heard of them before they sued me. And that'd shut Article Sound System down for good. And finally, we have another case that just wrapped up. Ed Sheeran, who previously caved and settled a $20 million copyright lawsuit over his song Photograph, which, by the way, was brought forth by the same fucking lawyer who won the Blurred Lines case, Ed said, "No more of this shit. I'm not just giving my money away because some wanker thinks my shitty songs sound like their shitty songs." Well, maybe I'm paraphrasing. And went to court against a guy named Sammy Switch, who claims his song, Oh Why, was ripped off by Eddie in his song, Shape of You. Let's toss a few more third-party claims on this video. No possibility that a person could independently come up with such a brilliant lyric as "Oh I, oh I, oh I," without hearing someone else say "Oh why, oh why, oh why." And that's what this all comes down to. Are there some similarities? Sure, I'm not deaf, but a lot of Sammy Switch's lawsuit was contingent on the fact that Ed Sheeran had heard his song before, which he of course couldn't prove. Even with the added notoriety from the lawsuit, the song still has only 375,000 listens on Spotify, and I bet most of that came in the last year. The song is from 2015. But Ed Sheeran decided to fight this, not for the money, but because he's sick of this bullshit. In an Instagram video, he said, and I'll spare you the accent, "It's become a culture where a claim is made with the idea that a settlement will be cheaper than taking it to court, even if there's no basis for the claim. It's really damaging to the songwriting industry. There's only so many notes and very few chords used in pop music. Coincidence is bound to happen if 60,000 songs are being released every day on Spotify. That's 22 million songs a year, and there's only 12 notes that are available." I can't believe I have to say this, but I'm 100% with Ed Sheeran, who, by the way, won the case. So, I guess Sammy Switch is going to have to switch to making money some other way. Listen, the other two names had way better puns to make. Anyway, I think these three cases I mentioned prove that these little vultures who will never see this kind of money are just trying to cash in, and it has the potential to make everyone always think, "Ah, shit, does this potentially kind of sound like something someone else did? Who am I going to have to give half of my Spotify pennies to now if this song becomes a hit?" Which stifles creativity. It's hard to be creative when you're always thinking, "Oh wait, did someone else do this already? Well, instead of making stuff, I guess I better spend the next 30 hours listening to artists with 10,000 listeners on Spotify, just in case they once used 4 notes in the same order I want to use them in." Now, you might have been thinking this whole time, Buckley, why do you even care? You hate pop music, and pop artists are a bunch of spoiled shits anyway. That's an oversimplification, but yeah, sure. It's mostly saccharine bullshit, and who really cares if a bunch of millionaires lose a little bit of their money? But this isn't just about pop music. These things potentially affect all music. In fact, potentially affect all creative endeavors. As Ed Sheeran said, there's only 12 notes available. Say you're a rock or metal fan. What's stopping some shitty garage band that uploaded their songs on SoundCloud to say, "Oh, Ghost ripped us off. Their riff kind of sounds like our riff"? The only reason that's not happening is because Ghost has 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify and doesn't have millions of dollars to sue for. Ed Sheeran has 82 million monthly listeners, over 27 times the amount of Ghost. Hell, nearly 5 times more than the Foo Fighters have, arguably the most famous modern rock band. That's why Ed Sheeran's a target, while no one's going after, I don't know, Shinedown. But you know, maybe I should be rooting for the little guys. After all, HBO's got deep pockets. They're owned by Warner. I could make some bullshit claim that Last Week Tonight with John Oliver ripped off my format of ranting about things going on around the world, even though rant comedy existed long before me, get a few $1 million from Warner, and then I can retire and never have to assault my senses by listening to another Ed Sheeran or Katy Perry song for research ever again.